keep me going. You know, Shiloh because he in the struggle with me, Sheba just because she's Sheba. Amen. And I'm a preacher, but I'm a different kind of preacher. I'm a preacher that comes from the street. I'm a preacher that comes from crack cocaine. I'm a preacher that comes from Brooklyn. I'm a preacher that comes from robbing. I'm a preacher that comes from a gun in his hand and the pipe in his other. The Bible sitting on top of both of them. I'm a preacher that didn't know whether I wanted to do the time in prison and do life or whether I wanted to get out after 2 years and try to figure out escape. I'm a preacher that comes from the Loxone and heroin and bus ball and Prospect Park and Ocean Parkway and Flatbush. I'm a preacher that comes from Dothan, Alabama and Birmingham and Houston County Jail and Florida, Orlando, a reception center and prison in Lakeland, Florida, Polk CI. I'm a preacher that comes from Draper and Kilby and prisons in Alabama. I'm a preacher that comes from all this here, what you stand for. And I'm also a preacher that will cuss you out and pray for you, and shoot you and kill you and preach your funeral. I'm a preacher. I'm a preacher that's real about being a preacher, that don't sit up here and try to profess and manifest something that I'm not, because I'm still a human being and I got flaws and I do wrong, and I'm a preacher that can help you get to God if that's where you want to go, or wherever the hell else you might want to go. I'm a preacher. But I'm here today to tell you about harm reduction. And what I learned in harm reduction is that I had to learn me. And the first thing I had to learn in being that preacher was I'm all that. You know? And when I learned that I was all that, I learned that there's nothing else I could be but that. I can't make myself someone else. I can't make myself anybody but me. And if I want to cause a coexistence with you all and doing and living and learning and being in existence with you, I got to first learn me. So my first point of harm reduction wasn't about learning all the drug policies and this and that. My first point of harm reduction was learning how to deal with me. How to deal with my fingers being born like this, my inconsistencies and all my irregularities and all the crack cocaine I consumed in my body and all the 14 years I did in prison. I had to learn how to deal with me. And once I learned that, then I knew what harm reduction was before I even heard of the word harm reduction, Mo. Because I knew when my attitudes came on, Shiloh, and it was time for me to get high, I knew to just hold up, chill out, think of some happy thoughts and something else. And if I need a little weed to help me get there, then maybe I need to do that, and that's my harm reduction.
Yeah.
And if I know that that's my harm reduction, then guess what? I'm not going to get confused into judging you and believing there's something wrong with you if something else is your, come on now, harm reduction. I learned that in my promiscuousness of trying to get satisfied by having sex and all that, that I understood a sex worker out there doing it for money. I just couldn't understand how she didn't get no feeling it. But anyway, I understood that that was harm reduction. I understood a whole bunch of different things about me and harm reduction that I never would have encountered unless I experienced them firsthand myself. So my question to you this morning, my welcome to you right now, is I welcome you all to be you. This is a place where you can just really be you. You don't have to put up the facade. You don't have to put up the professionalism. You're not in the office. You're not in a cadre of people. Tell them, Brother Get It, to where you got to be worried about being exposed and art. Tell them that, people going to go back and tell your job. You in a harm reduction conference. And the best thing that you can bring here is your full self. Everybody give yourself a hand. I sat up there and I asked Ralph for some talking points, and he gave me some, and me and him both knew I wasn't going to never get to them. But I will say this, what I love, Jenny, you know what I love? I love the point and the part that in this room right here, just look across the room, everybody just take time, look across the room. In this room right here, and I know there's some others, there may be many others, but I'm talking about us right here, right now. In the past 10 years, we have changed the whole world, especially America, the United States of America. And we've changed it in so many different ways. 10 years ago, when you mentioned marijuana, or medical marijuana, you know, we in the South. In New York, you know, dope is heroin. Dope is cocaine ain't even dope. But now in the South, dope, everything is dope. I came down here, migrated, my mama brought me here from Brooklyn, New York. First thing I seen was all these trees and space. I said, well, I can bring all my friends here. All this space, my mama said, people own this property. I said, but it says God's country. Ain't it free? And I found people started talking about dope. I was looking for heroin, shallow. They were talking about weed. I was like, that's not dope. And now we got people that distinguishes the difference between marijuana and dope. We done accomplished the language in 10 years that didn't happen. And it's all because of those of us sitting in these rooms. So I found out I wasn't the only one moment that was telling people, hey, reefer is not dope. Cocaine is not dope. Do not get it confused. And so we got the language changed. And once we change the language, people's mindsets start to change. And then marijuana is a talk of the country right now. But medical marijuana, the way they almost want to legalize it, we just ain't got enough police admitting that they're smoking it yet. Ralph said we need more congressmen to admit it, but I think it's the police themselves. Because I know good and well when they got them 2.5 pounds off me, when we got the court 1 pound, I know. What happened? And then they want to turn around and make me, Ralph, pay for all the court costs, for all the fines, for all the supervisory fees, and for all the marijuana charges. Give me my dope back since you want to make me pay for it anyhow. Now that's taxation without representation. I had to pay for it twice. I bought it, you caught me with it, then I got to pay you again. Come on now. But we done changed so many laws all over the South. I'm talking about the South, man. North, you just heard Robert go up here and go down the line of the naloxone. So we got people now that instead of want to lock people up, they want to sit up here and try to save them. We got police officers now, instead of want to brutally, want to beat up and shoot somebody, want to figure out how they can stick somebody. You know, they might be getting a little aggression off sticking that needle on big people. But at least they're saving their lives. And then we're doing it in Alabama. In Alabama, I'm with Brian Stevenson, one of the greatest men in the country, that is sitting up there pulling those people by tooth and nail. I must say, him and Maria Morris, that's over there in Southern Poverty Law Center. And what's happening there is we got the state of Alabama that's looking at the prison system, knowing that they're 200% over capacity. Now, some of them are doing it because of budgetary reasons and because of the money and all that. But it don't matter how they're doing it, y'all. What matters is that we getting it done. And we know that we got to appeal to these people sometime about their money. Because that's all they hear is money. You know, they're like Brother Cardone, who got my money? So we have to let them know that we're not your money no more. Oh, come on now. We're getting smart enough now to realize that we are the highest commodity that you have. And by us realizing that we're the highest commodity that you have, we'll start changing the language that you got to start speaking to us in our own language. And first and foremost, you got to learn that what you call me as an addict, what you call me as a convict, what you call me as a this, that, and the other, that's not what I am. I define myself. And one of the biggest things that we have learned to do in the harm reduction conference, and those of us that do this work, is we will stop allowing people to define who we are. Come on. I tell people all the time, I'm not your convict. I'm not your ex-felon. I'm not your nigga. I'm not none of that. So don't call me that, because if you call me that, you're like, I'm not your addict. I'm not your client. Come on. I barely want to be your patient, but I might be a little sick. Come on now. You know, and we have done this. So we need to really, really go into this thing with wholeheartedly and go into these workshops and go into the rest of this conference. We ain't going to be here but today and tomorrow. And we need to really connect with each other because we're doing this all over the country. When I first started, I felt like Elijah in the Bible. And I ain't finna preach, don't worry about it. I'm cussing too much preaching. And God is money. All week to repent. Where's Murray? Doing some Hail Marys over there. But when I first started, I thought I was the only one. I was like, well, ain't nobody else fighting. Then I met Ralph. Come on now. Ralph introduced me to some mofos just as crazy as I was. You know, and Ralph told you the beginning of the story in 2002 when we got going into the jails and stuff. In 2008, guess what we did? I sued the state of Alabama. We messed around and won the Moral Turpitude Act to where we can now got people in prison that can vote out of prison. So tell them folks, stop lying. So tell them people stop lying. When they tell you only 2 states you can vote out of prison, Maine and Vermont, well, you know it ain't but 7%, 9% black folks, y'all know that, right? Tell them it's a lie, because Alabama, you can vote out of prison if you got a crime not involving moral turpitude. So I started looking at what is moral turpitude. I want y'all to hear me now. Moral turpitude simply means, in layman's terms, a crime that doesn't cause hurt, harm, danger, or suffering to someone. Does that sound familiar? And I asked them, I said, so y'all had this in the Constitution of 1901? They said, yeah. I said, so y'all know that a crime of moral turpitude causes hurt, harm, danger, something to someone else, right? They said, yeah. But y'all don't know what harm reduction means. Hello, somebody. I said, why don't you take harm reduction and put it synonymous to the word moral turpitude and put them two together, and guess what? In harm reduction, we learn how to not cause hurt, harm, danger, and suffering to somebody else. And you know what the federal judge did? He said, I'll be in my office, y'all get this settled, and come get me when you get through. He was the most conservative judge, Keith Watkins. The most conservative judge we got in Alabama. He didn't want to touch it. He asked me 3 questions. Is it in your bylaws? Is it in your 501c3? And is it in your incorporation there? I said, yeah, he got all 3 of them. He was gone. What we have packed within us, each and every one of us in here, is we have all the answers we need. The only thing that we needed, and we do need now, is the opportunity to get to the people that call themselves the powers that be, for them to hear what we have to say. So what I'm asking you today is to go with my doctor's analogy. Because this is what got me in so many different doors. When I don't have to have Ralph or Gabriel Sayer or Stephanie Gilliard to use their white privilege to kick it go in for me, and I do happen to get in and get my foot just slightly in there where I can hold it up and then bust in. You know, I act like a little convict dick. I'll be like, oh, hold up, what's up? You know what? I had to get the angle like, what? You know, now I got your attention. What I want to talk to you about is about this policy that you have here. Senate Bill 67 seems to be somewhat inadequate in its equality towards the home.